more important that we get sellers in the market, or if you want to reverse the analogy, we get sellers off the Titanic before it sets sail. So anybody have anything else on their mind today to cover, some particular situations that you would like to talk about? Well, all right, awesome. So, hey guys, if you think of something, put it in the chat box, or you can just use your quiet spot, go off mute. Let me go here to, hey, Shabani, would you, or Sunny, let me be able to share a screen, okay? We're gonna be talking about one of the things that David brought up. David, I know you're on, so if you are in a quiet spot, could you unmute yourself and tell us about your situation so we can talk about it. I think you had multiple offers, and you are the listing agent, and the buyer and seller were basically digging their heels in, and this is $1 million plus property. So quickly give us the details on that, and let's maybe do a role play on that or strategize around the negotiation, okay? William, good for you. I'm glad you're going to Bold. David. Ah, he might have got kicked off. He was there a second ago. All right, so then I'll get up the slides.
I lost you for a minute. That's why I couldn't talk.
That's okay. No worries. All right, go ahead. Tell us your situation, and let's go ahead and talk about it real quick. Okay, we'll do a quick role play. So I brought him up to speed. I think you're the listing agent, $1 million plus property, and the buyers and sellers dug their heels in. So kind of fill us in, and let's take that the first topic today.
Okay, so my seller has two offers right now. One is 1.15, 1,150,000. It's a cash offer, and then the other one is 1,175,000. And I actually just called him, and I told him these are the best offers we have so far. We've been 2 weeks on the market, and you know, eventually these people are going to lose interest. He really is looking to get 1.2, maybe a little bit more. And he told me he wants to wait it out. You know, I told him, you know, you're running the risk. You might lose these buyers. What are you going to do then? And he doesn't care. He just wants to hang in and see if we can get 1.2 for this house.
All right. So you're at one. So I want to make sure that you said the numbers pretty fast. List price is what?
List price is 1.289.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And the buyer is at what number?
The buyer is at 1.175, all cash deal.
All right, so I don't have a calculator. So what's the difference on those two?
It's a difference of $110,000, $114,000.
Okay. Now, anybody have any, I'll start with you guys. I'd like you guys to participate if you want. If you were the listing agent here, what kind of magic pixie dust could you use in order to break the logjam? Where would you start? Or better yet, what questions would you like to ask to find out, you know, let's dig a little bit. It can be like Columbo. Let's figure out if David even asked the right questions. What comes to your mind? You can chat it, or you can chat it. In fact, I'll just get out of here a little second so I can see your chat.
I guess first I'd try to figure out where the set price came from, what are the comparables in his market, and what's sold in the last 180 days.
Awesome. So you want to know what the market is. So perfect. Here's the first thing that comes to my mind when a team member, or like David came to me, the first thing that comes to my mind is which of the two are being the most stubborn? Because you know, is the house worth that and the buyer's being stubborn, or maybe they're both being stubborn? They're both, Well, they technically could be both be realistic. So, how long has it been on the market, David?
2 weeks.
And you had two offers, and that's the best one, right?
I had 3 offers actually, and one of them backed out.
Okay,
The third offer was 1.1, and he decided to back out.
got it. So, in your opinion, which of the two parties is being the most stubborn, or greedy, or greedy?
Both of them are stuck on their number, and they're not going to come up. That's their final and best, from what I understand from their agent.
Okay, awesome. All right, so thanks, William. That was a great question. What else would you want to know? I'm talking to everybody right now. What else would you want to know as we're going to dissect this negotiation? All right, let me give you, now you're not working with the buyer, correct, David?
No, it's not my buyer. These are
Right.
2 different agents. Yeah.
So the next thing that I'd want to know is, and you have to get some insight into the buyer side. In other words, I'll get insight into the side you do not control, because you have basic insight. It may be good or bad or incorrect. However, you've got more insight on the side you control versus the side you don't control. So that would be step number 2, because here's why you want to do that. You want to know if you're fighting against a stubborn buyer, or you're fighting against a stubborn realtor and a stubborn buyer. Because if you have the real estate agent basically on your side, you've got a little bit more leverage. And so my question to you, David, is what does the other agent say? Do they defend the buyer's position? Or, and generally speaking, the more professional the agent, the more experienced the agent, the less information we share to one another, right? We never share bad information. However, we can be strategic. So I would make a call, and you might have already, to the other agent, said, David, listen, we're $110,000 apart. You know, that's like, what is that, 10%? I mean, is it based on a 1.1 or so million, or 8%?
1 second. We're actually $25,000 apart. He countered 1.2 last time to this offer. So we're talking about a $25,000 difference. And the other agent is really cooperating. She wants to make a deal, and she actually she told me I should tell my seller to split the difference, and maybe then she will be able to bring up her buyer another half. So that's where we left off.
Oh, awesome. Now you have $25,000 apart on $1 million transaction. There's a word that's buzzing through my mind right now. And you know what it is? It's emotion. This is not really too logical. If it were a straight business deal, you can get it done, come to some compromise or whatever. This is about winning. Now, what's the personality style of the seller you're dealing with, David?
I don't think he's a high D. He's a very stable guy. I'm not sure what personality you call that.
All right, stable's fine.
Yeah.
All right, now I'm asking you guys, what else has come in your mind that you would want to know? Big word starts with M. Ends in motivation. What's the motivation of the seller? They're selling this house to go where, for what reason?
So he's not going anywhere. He built this house. He's in construction. It's new construction. And you know, he bought he bought the lot back in 2004. He paid $350 for it. And then 2 years ago he began to build. He just finished building this house. So he really has no motivation to go anywhere. He just wants to cash out as much possible and make profit on the new construction.
Now, Faye, I see you're on. I don't know if you can talk right now. Were you on the Gary Keller call just a minute ago that Gary is talking to the MAPS coaches and stuff?
I was not.
Here's the thing. All right, now let's think of some questions. Let's put our brains together, because there's more than one way to do this. You have control over one side. You've got cooperation from the other agent, $25,000. Okay, now if you were dealing with a $25,000 on the buyer side, to say, well, you're only dealing with one Starbucks a day, whatever. I mean, you could reduce it to the ridiculous. You could still do that basically on the seller side. However, I think the lever may be fear of loss. Now, I'm going to be interested to hear what Gary has to say. Now, so David, why don't you can you put yourself in the position of being that seller?
Yeah, I could.
Okay, so don't be you, just be the seller. Now, David gave us a key piece of information. He's a builder, therefore he's got hard cost in it. It's not like he bought the house 10 years ago and has a lot of build up equity. And he probably has some pride. I don't know what his track record is. And this is about winning. Now, let me ask you a question, David, you're the seller, and answer it the way he would. A lot of the scripts we've gone over in the last 2 or 3 months, they're good scripts because they work. You want to find out where the seller is. So let me ask you, David, and there's no right or wrong answer. You're a builder, and I know you've got your finger on the pulse of real estate. Do you think the market's working in your favor or working against you? And before you answer that, I'll give anyone like a star, and I'll put you in a drawing for a trip to Greece. I love that movie. Trip to Greece. If you come up with what's that script called? I might have just said it by mistake. Anybody know?
The meat thermometer
It's
script.
the meat thermometer. So David, I'm asking you, the seller, what would that seller say?
So I definitely think the market is working in my favor right now.
Okay. So therefore you think if you're 25, let me ask you, are you willing? Is there a possibility the market could shift against you?
Yeah, I mean, we can't predict the future. Anything could happen.
So let me ask you, if you were in Las Vegas and basically, you had the winnings and I don't know what he has. I don't know what his profit is. However, you're $25,000 or maybe 10% lower on your profit than you want. And so what are the odds? Let me ask you this question. What are the odds that you're going to get that extra $25,000 on another cash buyer before the market shifts? What odds would you say? Now, you're the seller.
50-50 chance right now.
Okay. So basically, then what you're saying is just imagine $1.175 million in chips that are already on your side. And what you're doing is you're taking $25,000 and you're going to have one more spin of the wheel that, that you have a chance of, number one, winning the 25,000 or maybe losing 25,000 or $100,000 if the market shifts. Is it worth the risk to you?
I think so, because I don't see anything comparable to this right now here in the area. I'm looking at the inventory, and I think I should be able to get.
Okay. So what you're saying to me is you're willing to lose this cash offer with 1.175 million and wait on a better offer that may or may not come. Are you saying that?
Can you say that again? I lost you.
I'm asking, I just want to be clear that you're willing to say goodbye to a cash offer at 1.175, because if you don't counter, he's not coming up anymore. We'll have to keep the house on the market, and I don't know what's going to happen next. You might get your number, you may not. Are you saying goodbye to this buyer?
I'm willing to take the risk. I'm willing
Okay.
to take the risk to get more, 25 or maybe 30 more.
I got it. And let me ask you this, as a side note, you guys, and I'll let you guys, if you want to chat, I'm kind of watching the chat box here, just unmute yourself and pop in here. I kind of I march by the drum that they have to want to buy or sell more than you want them to buy or sell. You want them to make the right decision. However, and I've said this before, don't be attached to the outcome. Don't look at that as like, well, that's $25,000 in commission or $30,000 in commission, blah, 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 that I need to do that to pay for my swamp buggy. Here's the thing, you guys, if they have to make the decision, and it's going to be, and you know what, can anyone tell me what the odds are of that seller winning by spinning the wheel one more time? Anyone want to take a wild guess?
Infinitesimally small.
Well, that's interesting. Why do you say that?
Well, in my market, something like a cash buyer for an almost $2 million house is like, I don't know, finding a pig in a poke.
Right? Now you're right. Like in some markets that would be. So David is, and this is not a CMA issue. You guys understand that. This is not a, this is not a comp issue. This is about, I mean, the market is speaking because there's only 3 outcomes. It's been on the market 2 weeks. He has 3 offers. So is he an outcome number 1, load the no showings? Nope. He's an outcome number 2. He's getting showings, or he's actually below outcome number 2 and close to outcome number 3. Now, can anyone determine a house is or is not worth $25,000 at a $1.2 million house? You know, I mean, you can't, no one could defend the fact that it's not worth that. Now, do you think, David, now I'm going to ask you, the agent, have you coached the other agent on the questions that she could be asking the buyer? You might be muted, David, unless I lost you.
You lost me. What are you saying?
Have you coached the other agent on questions that she could be asking the other buyer, the buyer?
No, I didn't. No.
So let's help him. Let's give him some questions he could be asking the other agent. And on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 meaning she's brand new and 10 meaning she's a gorilla in the market place. She's really, really good and well experienced. Where would you place her on that scale?
I think she's a 7 or 8.
Okay.
She sells a lot in the area.
Okay. All right. So somebody take over the questions that they would be. Imagine David now is the buying agent. Somebody role play the conversation you'd have with her. Anybody? Don't be chicken. All right, so let me start. So here, David, here's the thing. Give me some insight. Obviously, we're on the same team. I always start that way. We're on the same team. Why is your buyer stuck at 1.175? That's right.
It sounds like it's an ego thing. You know, he thinks that.
David, you're cutting out. So somebody else who's in a quiet spot can role play with me. You be the buying agent.
Jenny, I'll go ahead and role play with you. This is Barb Bursch.
All right, Barbara. Hey, listen, so it's an ego thing, right? So have you worked with this buyer before?
No, I have not.
So obviously, well, I'm just kind of curious. Do you have any insight into what might make this work? And I know you mentioned about, you know, if the seller comes back and splits the difference. If the seller did that, that's $12,500. What's your buyer going to do?
I think at that, my buyer would probably accept the deal because I think that, you know, it is ego driven and it is that he wants a deal and he needs to feel like he's walking away making a deal.
And why? And now here's the thing, you guys, what would it look like if you, and again, most agents will be, you know, she's a 7 or 8, she's pretty experienced. So she'll answer carefully. And if you're not working with an agent that is that experienced, I mean, they will just tell you everything. You know, you might want to go a little bit into motivation. You know, why is the buyer moving here? One of the other questions that's come into my mind, okay, so look, you know, if this doesn't work out, I'm just kind of curious, what else is your buyer looking at? Now, anyone want to take a wild guess why I'm asking that?
I think you're asking it to see what their motivation is to purchase this particular home. So if you got competition on the table, then it's easier for them to walk away.
Well, yes. Well, I want to find out really, you know, this is a new house. I take it David told us it's a new house. If there are a lot of other new houses in the area for the same price range or not, I can't imagine there'd be a lot of them. You'd have 3 offers on the same house. And what's interesting is this, you guys. Here's the thing that's really interesting. I believe the market's efficient. However, it's not, you can't put a pinpoint exactly where the market is. Now, these have 3 offers, and the highest they've gotten is 1.175. And in my estimation, this is not the answer you want to hear. If the market does not shift, he'll probably get his number. However, the question I would ask the builder is, how long are you willing to wait for $25,000? And that's exactly how I'd ask it. I wouldn't ask him, how long is he willing to wait for 1.2? How long are you willing to wait for 25?
Oh.
And then he's, well, then if I don't know, what might he say, David?
You might say, I'll wait another 6 weeks, you know, or I'm willing to wait.
Okay. Now, do you think he built it out of cash? Or do you think he has debt on it?
I have no idea. I don't know.
That
That's
would
a
be
good
a good
question.
question to find out, because you know what, he is, regardless, there's an opportunity cost of money. There's taxes and insurance and
Right.
all these other things you have to pay, right? So his meter is running. So if he would say, well, I'd wait 6 weeks or whatever, or would you wait 6 months? Would you wait a year for the 25? That's the conversation. And the issue is that, and I don't know the fact that the guy's a cash buyer is a big deal, except that I'll tell you what, we're having our hands full with lenders right now, getting things closed inside 60 days. So if he had the 1.2 with financing, it was probably a 2-month closing. So what's the cost of carrying the house for 2 months? You know, even when you look at the opportunity cost. So is there anything else anyone wants to add that would give David the ability to go back and get this deal together? Now, he told me before the call is if he gets this deal together today, he's going to take 25% referral fee, and we're going to split it up to everybody that participates in the conversation. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
All right. Was that helpful, David?
Yeah, very helpful. Yeah.
Awesome. So I want to go to something else I prepared earlier today is this. And let's go here next. There's that. We did that. We had a situation happen, and with our team, which is kind of interesting. This is very similar to a role play we did last week. That the seller, so I want to find out. We had a listing, and the activity wasn't there, and then they called and want to cancel. And I think what I really want to talk about here is being blameless. I have discovered that there is an art of maintaining a listing, particularly maintaining a listing in a market that's super hot and they're not selling. So in this particular case, I think I'm a little bit stumbling right here because one of my team members that had this is on the call. We've already had the conversation. Here's the thing, you guys, if you have a listing right now, or you take a listing and you don't service it properly, or you don't get what I call get rid of the shadow of the mailbox in the driveway, you're not blameless to the seller. We have to be blameless in everything that we do in order for them to focus on the most important thing they can do, and that is price. So I trust that everybody on this call has been to my Facebook page, has the 1 and 3 things sheet, and you go over that with your clients. And in this case, you know, my agent did. However, what happens is that, and this is the skill one has to learn, is that we are the physicians, not the patients. And even having a conversation with the agent, I mean, I found out the agent was right in the fact that this was a gentleman. Have you ever had a seller that seems to know it all? And because I stepped in and attempted to save the listing and do whatever, and I saw where my agent was coming from. The mistake that we made as a team is we did not, number one, have regularly set weekly calls, and we did not advise them of what the problem is. Now, just because people are not motivated to sell does not absolve us from telling them they should be taking the right medicine. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Don't be lulled into the fact just because they say they're not in a hurry, we'll wait, will work in our favor. Because here's the thing, if they're overpriced, and generally speaking, again, if they're overpriced and not getting activity, I can tell you something almost for sure. And that is time will not solve that problem. Well, not time in matter of weeks or months, it may be decades, years before it happens. And so I believe we lost that listing. We might have lost it anyway. However, it's our job to let them know, listen, there's 1 of 3 outcomes. We're in outcome number 1, and there's nothing you can do to change outcome number 1 without repositioning. However, you cannot have that speech unless you're blameless. How do you become blameless? Well, for example, this is common sense. When you do the listing, do you send it to them and let them see everything and go over everything? Let them look at and approve the photos. I'm shocked sometimes when I look on MLS, the quality or lack of quality of some of the photography out there. I mean, that probably surprises you guys too, right? I mean, you see some really terrible things. And the other thing, and that's why do I call it the shadow of the mailbox on the driveway, is because I had the seller in the same situation, and you know, it's 2 months. He's not happy. The market's moving pretty good, and we're not getting any activity on the house. And he finally says to me, Denny, I know why it's not price. I know why it's not selling. I said, well, what is it? Have you seen? He said, have you seen the photos? I said, they look great. I mean, we had a great outdoor shot, and driveway, there wasn't a big oil stain in it. The garage door was shut. We did everything right. There wasn't a car up on blocks or anything like that. He said, look closer. And there, sure enough, you didn't see the mailbox. There was a shadow of the mailbox on the driveway. And in the seller's mind, that's why it didn't sell. And so ever since then, I learned that's a V8 moment. We have to be blameless. So our procedure is trust is being followed. And if you have a team, make sure they're following your procedures because they can get off track really fast. Make sure they approve the photography. Make sure they approve the order of the photography. Make sure they look at the comments. We've had high C sellers, very detailed sellers, look at the syntax of all the different comments and they really tweet commas and everything else. Here's the thing, the best analogy to use, I use this all the time when I'm talking to my sellers or whatever on the listing presentation. I like a good steakhouse, right? And Ruth Chris is a great steakhouse. And when you go to a great steakhouse, generally what they do when they bring it over to you is they'll set it down and then say, would you please check your steak and make sure it's done properly. That is the point we should do when we're on a listing presentation. My script is even, listen, here's the thing is I want you to cut into the steak. I want you to look at our listing. I'll look at it online and I want you to, because here's the thing, if I want to see a little tear coming down your cheek when you're looking at your listing online. Because if I can create that emotion in you, I can create that emotion in a potential buyer. However, they have to approve everything because then they can't come back a month or 2 later and say, well, did you see you misspelled refrigerator? You get what I mean? And so once you do that, and then once you're on schedule, I believe that if you have a listing not selling, you should be on the call weekly. And if you're not doing this already, my daughter does this at a high level, I believe, that she sets, I think, Monday or Tuesday up for all of her follow-up calls. This has got to be planned because it is not fun. It's a mind. I know I'm not programming you positively. It's a skill you have to adapt and embrace. You have to be willing to say, okay, you know, Brenda, I tell you what, we got your house listed. My follow-up calls are a Monday afternoon. You prefer a call every week or every 2 weeks? Early on, I would do it every week. Now, here's the challenge sometimes, okay? It's a week has gone by and there's been no activity. Now, question. There's been no activity. Who feels like there's been less activity, you or the seller? Who focuses on the lack of activity every day?
Seller.
Yes, that seller is sitting there and they're on their front porch in a rocking chair waiting on a showing. And after a couple of days of no showings, they're going to go and buy a voodoo doll that looks like you with the needles and everything. And they're going to sit on the porch sticking needles in the voodoo doll. And I promise you that'll be the case. So it's going to be Monday at 3 o'clock. We're going to spend 15 minutes on the call. And here's the thing, the most challenging call, it took me a while to embrace this, is the no report. Okay, so let's just go. Faye, you awake?
I'm awake.
Awesome. And you're on the phone all day long, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
All right, so here we go. I'm calling you this. Hey, Faye, it's 1:30. It's 1:30. It's time for our follow-up call. And do you have a few minutes?
I do. It's nice to hear from you, Denny.
Yes, I know. Well, you know, this is our first week that's gone by. And I just want to ask you a question. Remember the fishing sheet that I showed you with the 3 outcomes?
Yes.
It's obvious we're not in outcome number 3. It's not sold. What outcome are we at? Are we outcome number 1, low to no showings, or are we outcome number 2, showings and no offers?
Well, considering you and I are having this conversation, I presume that means that we're having, and I haven't been asked to depart my house, we're having low to no showings.
Right. So that suggests we're in outcome number 1, correct?
Yes.
You remember with the discussion we had around that it may call for repositioning.
I remember something like that. Did you suggest that we'd have to raise the price?
Yeah. That is an option, yes. However, here's the thing. Yes, it's only been a week. However, I just wanted to let you know that in your area, in your zip code, in the price range, there's I think if I remember right, there's 42 homes for sale and 12 went under contract since we listed. And so what concerns me, there's been no showings on your home. So I know it's only been a week. However, it's kind of like the doctor. I'm giving you a pill for the rash on your hand. The rash doesn't get better. Do you want to continue to take a pill that's not working, or do you want to change prescriptions?
Well, I think probably if nothing changes next week, we might have to change the prescription.
Here's the thing, you guys. I mean, 2 weeks. All right, now we're week 2. Hey, Faye, it's time for a follow-up call.
Hey, Denny, how are you?
Good. Now, normally she would probably have a little bit more anger in her. It's been 2 weeks, no showings. Now, what happens many times is us agents, the longer it goes with no showings, the less likely we are to want to call them. True? Because it's not going to be pleasant. However, if we are the doctor and say, listen, you know, say the rash on your hand is not going away, as long as you are with them every week and you're telling them, well, and they're going to say, well, wait a minute, you haven't even done an open house yet. Or what are you doing? How can you guys show, after a week or after 2 weeks or after a month or whatever, how can you show that you're doing your job, that the marketing's working? Because, you know, we have people here that are old school because they're baby boomers. It's like, I haven't seen you take out an ad in Craigslist or a classified ad in the Sunday display ads. I don't even see any ads going out. So how can you guys show and demonstrate during your weekly follow-up calls so you can be blameless, so you can get down to what's important? How do you show it's working? You're marketing and you are working. Somebody's eating peanuts or something. You don't want to mute yourself.
Are we supposed to?
One.
Yeah.
What would it be? Barbara?
Well, certainly the communication is important. And that's one of the biggest things that will lead them to believe that you are doing your job when you are reporting in as you indicated that you would, and letting them know what's going on in the marketplace. Probably should be prepared to let them know whether or not anything is getting showings or has sold in the area.
Right. And here's the other thing. You're right, Faye. That's the thing. The key here is this. You cannot push that off. If you push that off, you don't have a listing anymore. You have a pressure cooker. And that pressure is going to build and it's going to backfire on you. If you have the call each and every week and then you show them, and you know what, some people will get it, some people won't. However, talk to them about how many people. Well, here's the great thing. We had 75 showings, or at least cyber showings, Faye. They took the virtual tour and they didn't walk through the home. Well, if they took the virtual tour and didn't walk through the home, now you know it's priced because they're looking at your home and saying no. Now, we all understand that at a high level. Sometimes you might be working with people that think you have to do some sort of print or display advertising. Listen, and you have more than one script to get around that. However, every week you must share with them, here are the showings, here's what's going on in the neighborhood. If you do, and you say, listen, the fish aren't biting where we are, where we're positioned. We've learned two great lessons. One, fish aren't biting at 225 or 425, wherever you happen to be. And we've eliminated every price point from there up. So are you ready to lower the bait? It's never lower the price. Are you ready to reposition? Now, you guys on the call, do you guys have a system like that you're religiously talking to your sellers every week? Somebody speak up.
Well, the one thing that I will say in coaching agents around the country, Denny, is the agents that consistently do what you're talking about and have constant communication, that is weekly or bi-weekly, however they've set it up, those agents, by and large, don't have to talk about repositioning because their seller will often do it for them.
You're absolutely right. That's why I believe in the format. I believe in talking about the 1 in 3 things sheet and they initial that when you list the home. Every follow-up call begins, what outcome are we at? Because Faye's exactly right. They will get the format of the call is going to be the same. Here's what outcome are we are. We're not at 3, we know that. Then figure out where they are. And they may say, well, and I've had people say, well, I guess it's time to lower the bait. Yes, it is. Now that will be an interesting discussion. And I want to do that too, because here again, remember, we set expectations, not numbers. So Faye, if you'd be so kind to be that seller again, because you come out, so you've got such a great voice, is that say, so now you're ready to reposition. We're at 350. It's been 3 weeks. So what do you think? What do you think the answer is now, Faye? We're at outcome 1.
Well, you know, Denny, as we talked about, unfortunately, for me, I think it means that we're going to have to do some sort of adjustment.
Right. Now, here's the thing. They're going to want to, they're going to ask you what they should do, right? And so, well, and go ahead and ask me, Faye, because that's you're right. You're right, Faye. We have to adjust it.
So, Denny, what do you think we need to adjust it to?
Well, and I'm going to probably use the line like I just did. Well, we've learned the lesson that the market is below us, and I don't know how far below. Let me ask you a question. Again, going back, you said you wanted to be in Akron, you know, in 8 weeks, and so the clock is ticking, right?
Right.
So any movement in that direction is going to be a movement in the any movement down is going to be the movement in the right direction. So, are you thinking about a small move or an aggressive move, Faye?
Well, you know, we've been on the market for 2 weeks and I had 8 weeks to get where I wanted to go. So now we're at 6 weeks. I think I have to be more aggressive.
Okay, we're at 350 and we're not getting any bites at all. So we know we have to reposition. So what's the number you're willing to come down to at this point?
Well, what's the number that I have to come down to?
Well, I don't know. Here the issue is going to be, we've got a timing issue and, you know, we're at 350. I mean, the next major price point, you know, you're looking at 300, 325, 350. Those are the major price points. So where do you think you should be?
Well, if I remember correctly, you told me that properties similar to mine were selling in the area for between 310 and 325. So probably 325.
Okay. So you want me to go ahead and lower it to 325 today?
Well, I don't want you to do it, but I think we have to.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Now, again, when we do this, that's a step in the right direction. I want to remind you, they should make a country song about this. 1 to 3 things will happen. This may be exactly the move you need to make, Faye. However, you know, I always let them know, I set the expectation, because here's the thing. If you get all overjoyed with that, way to go, that's awesome, you start doing burpees and stuff, and 325 doesn't work, you're sending the message that that's the right price point. How do you go back later and say, hey, that's not deep enough? Now, and it can happen. However, a lot of us have worked in the market that's falling. Now you're got to get the slinky going down the steps. And so you have to get more aggressive. So here's the lesson I want you to get. If you say a number, you own it. So don't state a number. Now I gave her price points, and and again, everything's relative. I don't know where the comps are, and she just laid it out 310 to 325. So what if she said, well, how about if we come down $5,000? Okay, well, that's a step in the right direction. One of three things will happen. If I say now if she says, do you think that's enough? Well, I don't know. I mean, when not go back and say exactly what Faye said, if you look at the past sales, they were 310 to 325, and we're still up here a ways. I would be a little bit concerned. So you're not talking to me. So is anything, we're going to get off here a little bit early, not much, we have 5 or 10 minutes to go. I want to make sure for those that are Bold Pivot, I've got to get online for Bold Pivot to hear Gary speak. So talk to me, you guys. What are you hearing here? The lesson is, once you land a listing and it's not selling right away, believe me, it takes more work to keep that seller happy with you than it does to get the listing to begin with. So share a couple of ahas or questions or whatever, or input on how you make your sellers happy.
When you do those follow-up calls once a week, what else? You tell them, nothing is doing. We're in outcome 1 or 2. We don't have any showings. What else do you show them besides what went under contract recently, what the market is doing? Anything else you can tell them when you make those weekly calls?
Well, I think the important things, hey, Mark, good to see you. I think the important things are going to be, number one, hey, you're there. Lack of communication is the biggest reason sellers lose faith in their agents, not selling the house, is that it's very consistent. You should have a format, just like a pilot has a checklist. Hey, Faye, we're still at outcome 1. We had 1 showing. And just to give you some perspective is that showings are up in our marketplace, and you can, if that's data you track, showings are up in your price range. The number of homes in your zip code is, give them the market report as far as the overall market, then bring it down to their house. Now we've been on the market a month. If you look at our online traffic, if you'd like a copy of it, I'd send it to you. These are people that are looking at your house, from their computers or their phones. We had 85 people in the last week look at your home on the computer, and we had 1 showing. So here's the thing, that the marketing's working. That's the key. You've got to let them know you're doing it. Now, here's the thing. You understand that the buyers are coming from the internet, and all that other stuff is it's just things sellers want to look at. So you're letting them know you're there. You're dependable. You haven't forgotten about them. You understand, I care about you. The medicine's not working. So we're going to have to change medicine. And here's what's going on in the neighborhood. Here's what's happened in your home. What do you want to do in the next 7 days, Faye? Do you want to make your home more competitive? Are you willing to change your prescription? Any way you want to say it, just don't say, are you ready to lower the price? No one wants to lower the price. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's all. It's a 15-minute call. And I can tell you, there's people here. There's agents on here that do that. It was the hardest of all the things from a listing side to learn. That was the most difficult because no one ever taught me how to give a no report. Now, when you come up with the 3 things, that's the formula, because I actually understand to the core of my being that showings are driven by price. And I didn't know that I didn't know that deep in my soul for the first 20 plus years of real estate. In fact, you couldn't even do it 20 years ago. It's the internet that's made that efficient. So if you can do that, I don't think you'd ever lose a listing, because every expired listing is always because the agent's not talking to the seller or the seller's not listening. Anything else before we go? Ahas, questions, attaboys.
Denny, don't you think it makes sense? Most people, it's been my experience, don't really want me to tell them anything. They want me to show them. I don't care where they're from. All of a sudden, they're all from Missouri. So don't you think it's helpful to be able to, as you said, showings were at so much on, people looking at the virtual tours, etc. Don't you think it is helpful to be able to either email those to them or go see them or whatever, so that they can see that Denny's not just feeding me a line, that it actually is true?
Absolutely. I should have made that point. You're absolutely right. And again, you're right. Yes, that should be a report that goes out, and they may look at it, they may not look at it, doesn't matter. And here's the thing, which I've never done in my life, by the way. It's a great idea. Why don't you Zoom your sellers? Look at them. Never even had that thought till just a second. Then go over the report. Wouldn't that be awesome? And then if they're baby boomers, look, I'm in South Florida, right? And I have Social Security now. I just turned 65, so I'm one to talk, right? Kristen is like shocked. She comes to this area, and when she used to be in Scottsdale, where everyone's like 20. So I'm thinking my people they're still using flip phones. One more thing, you guys, I want to say about this. The sellers, even if you communicate, they're going to bring up, what do number one, if you don't cover the one of three things, you're going to say was, number one, we're not getting any showings. You haven't even brought anybody by, right? Are you prepared to handle that? Who can handle that objection? You haven't even brought anybody by. It's been 3 weeks, and you're my listing agent. I depended on you. You're not even bringing anybody by.
Can I give it a shot?
Sure, David.
Okay, so you're the seller, right?
Yep.
Okay, so you're asking me why I don't bring anybody by, correct?
David, yes. David, how do you know we're overpriced? I've had no showings. In fact, no one from your office has been there. You haven't been here. You call me every week. However, I haven't seen you since you took the listing. What's the deal?
Okay, Danny, that's a great question. Let me ask you a question. If you and me are in a tug of war and I'm on one end of the rope and 2,000 other people on the other end of the rope, who's going to win?
Who gave you that analogy?
You.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. Of course, the 2,000 people would win.
Right. So there are 2,000 agents in the marketplace competing against me, and they haven't brought any buyers so far. So whose fault is that, do you think?
So I'm kind of like a proud papa right here, right? What a great question. What a great acknowledgement. That's a great analogy to use. I'm concerned, David, that the other 2,000, I'm out there attempting to get the other 2,000 agents. Do you think I'm more concerned that they haven't brought anybody that I'm concerned that I haven't? So awesome. Good job. There was one more thing I was going to say here real quick is that, well, you haven't done an open house. I watch TV all the time. I hear all these open houses are successful. Now keep in mind, this house is like in a gated community on a gravel road, 3 miles. There's a moat, alligators, and machine gun nest, everything. Okay, so it's probably the worst location for an open house. They want you to see that they're going to want to pound marketing dollars out of you, or a pound of flesh if they're going to reposition. In fact, you may want to pound the flesh before they actually reposition. How do you handle that one, you guys? Anybody? Mark? You're always pretty creative.
So I go back to what you said before, and during the listing consultation, I'm going to talk about the 2,000 or the 6,000 agents that are more likely to have a buyer that fits your needs, and especially the top 200 agents who have listed or sold properties in your development or your neighborhood or your area of the town in the past 2 years. Yes, it's a possibility that those 6,000 agents, some of them may have buyers, but the more likelihood is that those top 200 agents have worked with people or have people in their database. It's my job to contact those 200 agents. And I particularly work and focus on listings. So I'm going to be focusing on those agents that have buyers in their pool.
Well, can't you do an open house for me?
Sure, but Danny, let me ask you this question. In your neighborhood, how many homes are there right now?
There's like, I don't know, 50, 70, I don't know, something like that.
Sure. And how many of those have we talked about that are on the market today?
Well, there was one down the street that was on the market. Remember, you showed me that one. That's pending, and mine's not.
Yeah. And you remember that particular house, how many square feet of living area it had?
No, I don't remember.
Yes. That one's almost twice the size of yours. So it's a different pool of buyers than what's looking for your home. So why don't we do this? Why don't we focus on finding buyers that are actually looking for a home like yours, rather than casting a net for people who aren't looking for homes like yours?
Well, is that your way of saying you're not going to hold an open house?
Denny, you know, what happens with a lot of people who come to open house is going to be your neighbors, not necessarily buyers that are looking for your home. So in my experience, very few of the people who actually come to open house are actually going to end up buying your house. It's more likely that they're coming because they're curious about decorating ideas, or they're looking for a home that your home doesn't fit their criteria. So why don't we focus on those people that are actually looking for a home just like yours?
Very smooth, Mark. Very smooth. Nice job. Anybody have anything to add? Like I said, I'd let you go about 10 minutes earlier, so because I've got to get on the Bold Pivot page. We'll be on Thursday. If you have, David's always good. If you got something that's rocking and you want to cover it, or a role play you want to do, I gave you my cell number, I think last week, 239-851-4600. Even if you're on Facebook Live, 239-851-4600. You can text me if you have a question or a role play. I love helping people, you know, build their business and gain understanding, because it really is, there is a science to what we do. And there's more than one way to skin a cat. And David, you just made me so proud. You used my analogy perfectly. Nice job. Anybody get anything out of it? Any ahas, any pats, apples for the teacher?
Yeah, I thought you did a great job. I mean, anytime I can get on a call with a man, he says I'm right twice. It's a win for me.
Well, Kristen teaches me to say that all the time.
I look forward to watching the replay. I'm sorry I got on a little bit late.
All right, you guys have a great week, and be careful out there.
Thanks, Denny.
Bye-bye. Thanks for being on.